Buck, I think that's over. I think that's done, but
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished.
From the pavement to the spotlight, this is where it all starts, because Buck's rise is straight up unbelievable and sets the whole mood for everything that comes later. Growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, young David Brown wasn't living any smooth, comfortable life. He was moving non-stop through the city, bouncing from Sea Fright in North Nashville to South Nashville's J.C. Napier projects, then over to the South 7th projects. By the time he was just 8, this kid already knew Nashville like a full map. East, west, uptown, downtown. He had walked through every corner, learning all kinds of street lessons that later shaped his whole mindset and sound. To bring in some cash and help out at home, young Buck stayed on a serious grind, doing every legit hustle he could get into, pumping gas for tips, cutting grass, cleaning up cars, anything that would put a few dollars in his pocket. And while he was working, music became his escape, his shield, his big dream. He started freestyling with his day ones, stepping into battles with anyone brave enough to try him, slowly building a name inside Nashville's underground hip-hop scene. That's where people first noticed that Buck wasn't just rapping, he was hungry, focused, and already moving like someone who expected greatness. Now here's where everything takes a wild turn and proves just how strong Buck's early hustle really was. One day, Buck and his homie came across a BG Chopper City CD, and on the back cover, they spotted a phone number for Cash Money Records. These two young dudes looked at each other, barely understanding the industry, but already thinking big.
But what did happen was Buck and Lil Jimmy ended up meeting everybody at Cash Money Records. And the first thing that Birdman told Buck was to spit a freestyle for him, and he put him up against Lil Wayne at that time, and they went back and forth. And that ended up impressing Birdman.
So what did they do? They actually called the number with this bold idea, taking a chance that most grown artists would have been scared to even try. That moment right there shows exactly who Buck was becoming. Someone ready to push past every obstacle and go straight for his dream, no hesitation. They told Cash Money they wanted to book them for a show in Nashville for around $5,000, and somehow, against all odds, the label actually agreed to lock in that gig. The show itself never ended up happening, but what did happen next flipped Buck's entire future in a way nobody expected. Birdman was so impressed by the move that he brought Buck straight down to New Orleans to talk business and see if they could make something official with Cash Money Records. That moment alone showed just how bold Buck's hustle really was. At just 14 years old, Buck made one of the biggest choices of his entire life. He stepped away from school completely to chase rap full-time. Now, nobody here is judging whether that was the perfect decision for someone that young, but it proves how driven and focused he was on making music his whole path. This wasn't a side passion or a cute dream. This was his entire escape plan, his shot at a better life, his way out of the struggle.
Buck ended up coming on with them and hopefully having his situation figured out as well. But as years went on, Buck said he spent 3 to 4 years with Cash Money and none of his music ever got released. He got essentially put on the back burner while the other artists on Cash Money like Lil Wayne, Juvenile, BG, so on and so forth, ended up blowing up.
The only real evidence Buck has from his whole Cash Money era is a quick appearance in the Big Timers' Big Ballin' music video. By 1999, Buck had reached his limit. He was watching everybody else around him rise while he sat on the sidelines, waiting, and he finally made the tough call to step away from Cash Money and return to Nashville to build his own lane. But those years weren't wasted at all. Buck picked up major knowledge about the music business, built real connections, and met key people like DJ Paul from 3 6 Mafia and Juvenile. Relationships that would become extremely important later on. Back in Nashville, Buck reconnected with his local crew and jumped right back into independent grind mode, ready to reinvent himself and push harder than ever. No label behind him, just pure grind and determination. On August 22nd, 2000, he dropped Thug Until the End with his homie D-Tay, and something crazy happened. This fully independent project, no machine, no big budget, actually charted on Billboard, hitting number 34 on the US R&B charts and number 17 on the US independent charts. For a Nashville artist with no major push, this was massive. Buck managed to move around 10,000 units all on his own. And even though that might not look huge next to major label sales, for a young independent artist hustling out the trunk, it was a statement. It showed that this dream wasn't just wishful thinking. There were real people listening, real fans forming, and a real lane opening up for him.
And out of my ordeal back in the streets, I ended up getting shot in a home invasion and a robbery. One in the arm and one in the upper thigh area. It was enough for me to wake up and really realize that, yo, if this shit keep going on like this, I'm either to get killed go to jail. And I really realized that because I was getting down for real. Really started to devote more of my time to the music then, the studio, period.
But then came the moment that shook everything. The reality check that forced him to pick a side once and for all. After recovering from being seriously injured during a home invasion situation, Buck made a personal promise to himself: no more street distractions, no more risky paths, full commitment to the music grind from that point on. That decision changed his whole direction. And just when he needed a blessing, one showed up from his old Cash Money circle. DJ Paul from 3-6 Mafia, someone who always respected Buck's talent and pen game, heard what happened and reached out immediately. He wasn't about to let Buck fall back into the wrong lane. DJ Paul arranged for Project Pat to scoop Buck up from Nashville and bring him down to Memphis so he could lock in at the studio and lay down some serious tracks. This was the moment where everything started shifting for real. New city, new energy, and a chance to rebuild stronger than ever. Out of those Memphis studio sessions came Buck's first real album placement. Memphis on 3-6 Mafia's When the Smoke Clears, 66-61. This was a major breakthrough, the kind of exposure Buck had been grinding for, and it set the stage for everything that would hit next. But even with that solid look, Buck didn't end up signing with 3-6 Mafia. He went right back to Nashville, still pushing independently, but now he had way more visibility, way more connections, and a whole new level of respect attached to his name. Now hold up, before we fast forward too much, we gotta get into how Buck actually ended up joining G-Unit, because this story is wild from top to bottom. When things really started shifting, Birdman, his old Cash Money connection, came back into the picture with a brand new proposition. Everything had changed since Buck first tried linking with Cash Money in the late 90s. The label was huge now. Bigger buildings, luxury rides everywhere. The whole team moving like a top-tier empire. Birdman wanted Buck to be part of a new group he was building called Head Busters, and Buck flew back to New Orleans to see what the move was. But as soon as he got there, the same old patterns started creeping in, and not in a good way. After sitting around for about a week waiting for things to officially move forward, Buck started feeling that same familiar tension. There was no real paperwork, no confirmed contract, no clear timeline, just promises hanging in the air, and this time Buck wasn't a young kid who didn't know better. He was a grown man now with real responsibilities, real momentum back home, real business on the table, and he couldn't just sit around hoping something would magically happen. The waiting, the delays, the slow pace, none of that matched the hunger he had in him anymore. Buck had evolved, and he wasn't about to let someone else control his future again. Then something unexpected happened that flipped Buck's whole path. Juvenile walked into the Cash Money offices and was shocked to see Buck just sitting there waiting around like the deal was about to happen any minute. Juvenile was going through his own transition at the time, dealing with his own problems with Cash Money, and out of nowhere, he made Buck an offer that would shift everything.
Juvie happened to pull up at the office, and when he pulled up, he was kind of shocked to see me there. I'm like, I've been here for a whole week. And he was like, man, you want to get up out of here for a minute? You know what I'm saying? And I took that ride with Juvie, and that's where my career started with Juvenile.
That's when Buck officially joined Juvenile's UTP movement, at least on the surface. But here's the part that shows just how sharp Buck really was even back then. When Juvenile handed him the contract, Buck took it home, slid it under his bed, and never actually signed it. That was a smart move, no doubt. He stayed close to the team, worked with them, but kept his options wide open. During that run, Buck dropped 2 projects, Born to Be a Thug on October 10th, 2002, and a compilation album with UTP players on October 8th, 2002. But the wild part is that technically, he was never officially signed on paper. So why keep it that way? Because Buck was watching everything around him with a sharp eye. He remembered how things went at Cash Money, and he could already see that Juvenile was dealing with his own serious issues with the label. The whole situation looked unstable, and Buck wasn't trying to get stuck in another messy setup. At one point, Juvenile even told Buck straight up that if a better shot came his way, he should take it. That's real honesty right there, and it showed Buck that he needed to stay flexible. Then it happened. Buck and Juvenile were on tour, and their tour bus stopped in New York. This was 2002, and 50 Cent had the hottest buzz in the entire city. Everyone was talking about him, the streets were heated, and the energy around his name was unmatched. This moment was about to open the door that would change Buck's whole life again. The tour bus driver just happened to know someone connected to 50 Cent's former manager, Shaw Money XL, and Buck kept pushing him non-stop, asking if he could help bring 50 onto the bus so they could possibly create something together. And guess what? It actually happened. 50 stepped on that tour bus, but he came there specifically to lock in with Juvenile, not Buck. While Juvenile and 50 were in the back working on records, Buck made a clever move of his own. He started playing some of his solo tracks for Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo, who were chilling toward the front of the bus. One track hit Banks instantly. The vibe, the bounce, everything grabbed him right away. Banks took that beat straight to the back where 50 was recording. 50 heard it, rocked with it, and decided to jump on the track. That record later became Hound, the one featured on the legendary Get Rich or Die Trying album, without using the original title for guideline safety, but you know the record we're talking about. Now, even though that wasn't the first track released with all four of them together, A Little Bit of Everything on the 50 Cent Is the Future mixtape dropped earlier, Hound was the track that officially put Buck in front of the mainstream audience in a major way. 50 liked Buck from the start, but he couldn't offer him any kind of real deal at that moment because he himself wasn't signed to a major label yet. But Buck made a strong impression, and 50 never forgot him. So when the situation with UTP finally fell apart, just like Buck had expected from the beginning, fate stepped in again. 50 reached out because he wanted Buck to fly out to Los Angeles to meet with him, Eminem, and Dr. Dre. This was the moment where Buck's entire future was about to turn in a completely new direction, and his life was never going to be the same again.
A week after the deal fizzled out with UTP, 50 Cent ended up calling Young Buck and said, "Hey, we want that Bloodhound track. We'll pay you $20,000 for it. Let us put it on the album." And the track is getting mixed by Eminem and Dr. Dre.
Dre stepped in, and that's when everything became real. Buck was about to officially sign with G-Unit. For any rapper chasing a breakthrough, this was the dream setup, especially for someone who had already dealt with so many setbacks and disappointments along the way. Buck's first major placement under G-Unit Records was Hound on 50's Get Rich or Die Trying album. Again, title phrased safely, but you know the track. But instead of rushing Buck into a solo rollout, 50 played it smart. He wanted the world to see Buck as part of a powerhouse first, so he dropped the group project Beg for Mercy before anything else. That move changed everything. Beg for Mercy debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and sold 377,000 copies in the first week. Today, it's moved over 2.7 million units in the US, and is close to worldwide diamond status. Buck wasn't just in the game, he was front and center on one of the biggest stages hip-hop had ever seen. The entire hood was watching him level up in real time. Following the G-Unit blueprint, Buck dropped his mixtape Welcome to the Hood on May 31st, 2004, hosted by DJ Who Kid, building that street buzz right before his solo moment. And then it happened on July 2nd, 2004, his first official single, Let Me In, featuring 50 Cent hit the streets, peaking at number 34 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was clear Buck had the momentum. Then came the true milestone, August 24th, 2004, the day Buck released his debut album, Straight Outta Cashville. The impact was instant. The album launched at number 3 on the Billboard 200, selling 361,000 copies in the first week, and it went platinum shortly after. That was a massive win. The second single, Shorty Wanna Ride, became Buck's highest charting solo record ever, hitting number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100. Everywhere you looked, Buck's name was ringing. His voice was everywhere, and his sound was reaching far past Nashville. But the biggest achievement wasn't just sales or charts. Buck shattered what people used to call the Nashville curse. He became the first Nashville rapper outside of the country scene to break into major mainstream hip-hop success in decades. He didn't just win, he opened a whole new lane for his city, and the culture felt it instantly. People in the industry used to talk nonstop about a so-called Nashville curse, saying non-country artists could never break out the city. But Buck smashed that whole idea to pieces and opened the lane for everybody behind him. He proved Nashville could shine in hip-hop too, and that was huge. Then came November 15th, 2004, the night of the Vibe Awards, and things took a wild turn that would follow Buck for years. Dr. Dre, Eminem, 50 Cent, the whole G-Unit squad, and Suge Knight were in the building that night. Out of nowhere, a man named Jimmy Johnson allegedly put his hands on Dr. Dre, and reports claim that Young Buck responded by striking Johnson with an object during the chaos. After that moment, Buck left the scene and stayed low for a short while, but eventually he turned himself in a couple of days later to handle it the right way. It took about a year and a half before the whole situation was settled, and Buck ended up receiving 3 years of probation plus 80 hours of community service. Even though the outcome wasn't career-ending, this was the first big warning sign. The first moment showing how Buck's street instincts and deep loyalty to his crew could clash with the industry world he was stepping into. It was a reminder that one moment of chaos could throw everything everything off balance. Still, Buck didn't slow down. In 2005, he stayed focused and kept stacking wins. He appeared on 3-6 Mafia's massive hit, Stay Fly, which reached number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and went double platinum. That song had the whole country rocking, and Buck's presence on it boosted his name even higher. Around the same time, he dropped an independent album to help introduce the new G-Unit South artists, because 50 had trusted him with leadership of the whole southern branch of the label. Buck was no longer just an artist. He was turning into an executive, building his own corner inside the G-Unit empire. By 2006, Buck was flooding the streets with mixtapes, keeping the momentum sharp as he prepared for his next major album release. The grind never stopped for him. He dropped Case, Dismissed, the introduction of G-Unit South with DJ Drama, a project that doubled as a celebration of finally closing his legal situation from the Vibe Awards incident and a way to introduce the new artists he was bringing up under the G-Unit South banner. It was Buck showing the world that he was moving forward with strength and building something bigger than just himself. Around this same time, while Buck was locked in on his second album, Buck the World, things behind the scenes started getting tense. 50 Cent and their shared manager Shaw Money XL were having serious issues, the kind that couldn't be patched up. 50 brought the whole G-Unit team together and told everyone straight up they all needed new management because he was cutting ties with Shaw Money. It was a major shift inside the camp. And here's where Buck's loyalty, one of his strongest qualities, suddenly turned into a problem. Buck and Shaw Money XL were extremely close. So close that Buck was the best man at Shaw Money's wedding. That wasn't just business, that was real family to him. So when 50 told the team to walk away from Shaw Money, Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo followed the order with no hesitation, but Buck didn't. Buck didn't see Shaw as just a manager. To him, that was his brother, someone who had always stood beside him, someone he had no personal issues with at all. In Buck's mind, whatever problems 50 and Shaw were dealing with would eventually get sorted out, and he didn't feel right turning his back on someone who had never done him wrong. But 50 didn't see it that way. He took it as disloyalty, as Buck choosing the other side, and the tension built instantly.
Shaw Money had became a best friend of mine. I'm the best man on this man's wedding. That's how me and close Shaw was. Me and Shaw were probably closer than me and 50. Him and 50 was, so I'm the best man of this man's wedding. I'm judging Shaw not from a business standpoint of his problems with 50, but looking at him as my brother.
Almost overnight, the energy shifted. You'd see Banks, Yayo, and 50 together at shows, events, radio runs, and appearances, but Buck and Shaw Money were on their own, promoting Buck the World. It was like a split you could physically see. Buck has always believed that this quiet separation inside the camp is a major reason why Buck the World didn't perform like his debut did. The album still put up respectable numbers, 98,000 first week sales, and eventually went gold, but without the full G-Unit machine pushing it, the momentum just wasn't the same. And on March 27th, 2007, when Buck the World officially dropped, the cracks inside the team were already showing loud and clear. The album debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 with 140,000 first week sales, but the singles I Know You Want Me and Get Buck didn't hit as hard as the big records from his first album. The momentum just wasn't the same, and the numbers showed it. At the same time, 50 started accusing Buck of being too cool with all of 50's rivals. The Game, Jadakiss, Fat Joe, Jim Jones, all those names that 50 was clashing with. Buck later explained that he wasn't trying to become friends with anybody. He was actually relaying information back to 50 about what these cats were saying. But 50 saw any contact at all as straight up disloyalty. It created a whole new wave of tension. Then 50 hit Buck with another issue, saying Buck was burning through money too fast, not handling his business right, and refusing to deal with taxes. 50 even said he had already covered Buck's taxes twice, and by the third time he was done helping. By 2008, Buck found out he owed $300,000 to the IRS, and that turned into a huge problem for him financially and professionally. It was a major weight on his back. The beginning of 2008 hit even harder. In January, Buck appeared at a show with Lil Wayne and Birdman, and both of them publicly said Buck should leave G-Unit and come join Young Money/Cash Money. On stage, Buck seemed to agree with that idea, and when 50 saw the footage, he was furious. It felt like another sign of disloyal energy to him. Then in February 2008, G-Unit dropped a new mixtape called Return of the Body Snatchers Volume 1, and Buck's name was nowhere on it. Fans were confused because just a few months earlier, they had all been on a song together called Feel Good, like everything was cool. The sudden separation didn't make sense to anybody watching from the outside. And then came the moment that changed everything. The moment that set off a chain reaction Buck would feel for years. It was explosive, unexpected, and it pushed his entire career into the most chaotic spiral he had ever faced. This was the moment that pushed Buck into a downfall he's still trying to recover from today. The fall, the bankruptcy, and the long road back. In March 2008, 50 Cent and Young Buck had a private phone conversation that nobody knew about at the time, except 50 was secretly recording the whole thing. After that call, things appeared cool again. Buck even showed up on tracks for the G-Unit mixtape Elephant in the Sand that same month. For a brief moment, it looked like the tension might finally settle and both sides could move forward together, but that peace didn't last at all. On March 20th, 2008, Yo Raps magazine released an interview where Young Buck said, "I'm still waiting on a royalty check, period. I've never seen a royalty check since I've signed with G-Unit, so hell yeah. I'll tell you one damn thing that show money is that good, I've never in my career cashed a royalty check." Here's the twist. The interview was old. It had been recorded months before, but the outlet decided to drop it in March, right when Buck and 50 were finally getting cool again. The timing was unbelievably bad, and it hit the internet like a bomb. It felt like straight sabotage. Shaw Money XL tried to fix the situation immediately. The very next day, he denied the claims and said Buck had earned over $10 million working under 50's guidance. It was an attempt to cool everything down, but the tension was already ripping through the camp. Then came the moment that officially broke the bond. On April 7th, 2008, early on a Monday morning, 50 Cent called into Hot 97 and made a stunning announcement. He told the entire world that Young Buck was no longer part of G-Unit as a group, even though he was still signed to G-Unit Records as a solo artist. It was a public separation with no warning, and the whole hip-hop world felt the shock immediately. This announcement marked the true beginning of the storm Buck was about to face, the storm that would follow him for years and test every ounce of strength he had left. The following week, when the whole G-Unit crew pulled up to Hot 97, 50 dropped even more details and publicly claimed Buck was dealing with a serious substance problem. It was a heavy accusation, and Buck stayed silent for a few weeks, most likely trying to figure out how to respond to everything hitting him at once. But on May 12th, 2008, Buck came out swinging with a record called My Interview, where he addressed being removed from G-Unit and spoke directly to the substance use claims. It was the first time he pushed back publicly, trying to clear his name while letting fans know where he stood. Things cooled down a bit until June rolled around. That's when Buck made a move that locked his fate for good. On June 15th, 2008, Young Buck went on stage and openly dissed G-Unit. That was the moment of no return, the line drawn in the sand where he fully separated himself from the group. Just 2 days later, on June 17th, 2008, 50 Cent released the full recorded phone call where Buck could be heard crying, stressed out, and asking 50 for help. The clip spread everywhere instantly, and the whole situation got even more intense. The very next day, June 18th, 2008, Buck fired back with a diss track called The Taped Conversation, addressing the leaked call directly. The Game even hopped on the remix days later, adding more fuel to the drama and showing support for Buck during the fallout. There was even talk of a collaborative mixtape between Buck and Game called Worth More Than 50 Cent, supposedly dropping in July, but that project never came together in the end. Then came another major blow, when G-Unit released their second group album, Terminate on Sight, on July 1st, 2008. Buck was only featured on 4 songs. Instead of being a core part of the crew like before, he was reduced to guest status on what should have been one of the biggest moments for the entire group. For the rest of 2008, Buck barely released any new music at all. According to him, the reason was simple. He claimed 50 Cent was actively blocking his ability to record and drop another album. It felt like every door around him was closing at the same time, and the pressure kept building. Since he was still technically signed to G-Unit Records, 50 had the power to block any official releases, which pushed Buck into a different strategy. Starting in 2009, he began flooding the streets with mixtapes, dropping music non-stop just to keep his name alive, and here's something real fans noticed. 2009 was actually one of the strongest years of Buck's entire career. You could hear the hunger in every track, the pressure, the frustration, the drive, the raw emotion in his voice. He was dealing with a tough situation, and he poured all that pain directly into the music. Buck released multiple mixtapes in 2009, including Back for the Streets on April 11th and the highly praised Back on My Buck on May 26th. Tracks like I Want It All and I Got It, featuring Young Jeezy, showed Buck at his sharpest, focused, motivated, and sounding like he had something to prove. But while he was trying to keep his momentum alive through mixtapes, Buck's personal and legal issues were stacking up to a dangerous level. Everything was becoming overwhelming from every angle. Then on August 3rd, 2010, things got even heavier. The IRS showed up at Young Buck's home over more than $300,000 in unpaid taxes. During the search, they found a tool in the house. And because Buck had a past conviction connected to the 2004 Vibe Awards situation, they charged him again, despite Buck explaining that the item belonged to his licensed tour manager, not him. It was another devastating blow, coming right when Buck was trying to rebuild himself. But 3 days later, showing exactly why fans respected him, Buck dropped a track called My Campaign, where he spoke directly about the IRS situation. Once again, he took real-life pain and turned it into music instantly, using every setback as fuel to keep pushing forward. Even when life was hitting him over and over, Buck kept proving he had a rare ability to turn pressure into power and hardship into pure bars. Then on August 19th, 2010, Buck filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. But here's the key detail most people overlook. Through that bankruptcy move, Buck was finally able to break free from his G-Unit Records contract. It was a strategic play hidden inside a desperate situation, and it changed the entire direction of his career. He dropped his independent album, The Rehab, on September 7th, 2010. It debuted at number 55 on the Billboard 200 and moved around 6,400 copies in its first week. Solid numbers for an indie release, but still far from the heights he once reached. Meanwhile, his legal issues kept stacking up like crazy. In March 2011, G-Unit Records hit him with a $10 million lawsuit, another massive blow that added more pressure to everything he was already dealing with. But then came a strange moment of hope. Late in 2011, 50 Cent randomly tweeted, "For some reason, I think Young Buck is mad at me. Who cares? I'm giving my $250,000 back, sucker." It was confusing, a mix of pettiness and maybe some leftover respect, and fans didn't know what to make of it. Then, on March 4th, 2012, things took another dangerous turn. Buck was involved in a drive-by incident outside a South Nashville club. His girlfriend was wounded in the shoulder, but thankfully survived. The situation left Buck shaken, and it showed just how chaotic his life had become during this period. A few months later, on July 13th, 2012, Buck was officially sentenced to 18 months in federal prison on charges related to possessing restricted items connected to the earlier IRS search. It was another devastating moment in a long chain of setbacks. And it didn't stop there. The following month, the IRS held a public auction to sell off Buck's possessions, his jewelry, studio gear, personal items, everything. They collected around $53,000. But the whole event was a humiliating display of just how far Buck had fallen from the top. It was painful to watch. In August 2012, Buck officially turned himself in to begin serving his 18-month sentence. It was one of the lowest points of his entire journey. Then, on October 2nd, 2013, Young Buck stepped out of prison. And what happened next shocked the entire hip-hop world. The moves happening behind the scenes were nothing anyone expected. 50 Cent had already been fixing things with Tony Yayo and Lloyd Banks, and behind the scenes, it looked like he had been thinking about Buck too. Then on June 1st, 2014, at Hot 97 Summer Jam, 50 shocked the entire crowd when he brought out all 3 original G-Unit members. The place exploded. Fans went wild because it was the official G-Unit reunion everyone thought would never happen again. After that moment, they released 2 EPs, The Beauty of Independence on August 25th, 2014, and The Beast is G-Unit on March 3rd, 2015. Both projects had some genuinely strong tracks, and people really believed the squad was locked in again for real. Buck pushed even harder and launched his ambitious 10 mixtape series, dropping 10 bullets, 10 bricks, 10 pints, 10 bodies, and more between 2015 and 2018. It showed his insane work ethic and how dedicated he still was to the craft, no matter what chaos was around him. But then the setbacks came again. On July 15, 2016, Buck got arrested after an argument involving his ex-girlfriend. Authorities claimed he made a threatening remark about her apartment, and he ended up being sentenced to 7 months inside. Another moment where emotions and frustration took control at the worst possible time. By 2018, things looked like they might be turning around. Buck released Can't Lose on March 30th, 2018, a track that was straight fire and easily deserved way more attention. Then he announced his third studio album would be executive produced by both 50 Cent and Dr. Dre, which had fans going crazy with excitement. But once again, the relationship with 50 Cent fell apart. 50 claimed Buck owed him over $300,000, and he started hitting Buck with cease and desist orders to block anything Buck tried to release. Every move Buck made ran into another wall, and the tension was stronger than ever. Then in 2019, leaked audio of Buck in a private conversation with a trans person surfaced online. Instead of keeping things respectful, 50 began publicly mocking Buck on social media, posting content that many viewed as disrespectful and hateful. It created a massive storm online and pushed the G-Unit situation past a point where reconciliation even seemed possible. By early 2020, the door on any future reunion was basically slammed shut, and the fallout had gone from business problems to a full public feud that the whole hip-hop world was watching unfold. Buck ended up filing for bankruptcy again, this time specifically to break free from his contract and push back against 50's lawsuit. After a long legal tug-of-war, Buck officially lost the case in 2023 and agreed to pay $200,690 of the alleged $250,000 debt. To cover this and his other financial responsibilities, he liquidated assets worth around $1.05 million, spending $445,000 on legal fees alone and leaving roughly $600,000 for creditors. Then in April 2025, Buck ran into more trouble and was arrested once again, receiving a 30-day jail sentence for multiple violations connected to his bond supervision from an older domestic case dating back to 2020. He was released around May 12, 2025, and his trial was pushed back to January 12, 2026. But despite everything, the lawsuits, the setbacks, the pressure, Buck seems to be in a much healthier space mentally and emotionally today. He's active online, celebrating milestones like the 18-year anniversary of Straight Outta Cashville, reconnecting with fans, and showing real signs of growth. He looks focused on building his legacy, moving forward with maturity, and refusing to let the past define his future. Young Buck's journey has been one of the wildest in hip-hop history, full of highs, lows, loyalty, mistakes, talent, struggle, and resilience. And his story is still unfolding, one chapter at a time. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dive stories just like this, make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment, share this video, and subscribe to support the channel. It helps a lot and keeps this content going strong. See you in the next video.